Nobody cares about your dovetails. Okay. Woodworkers care about your dovetails. We care a lot. We'll photograph them, zoom in on them, judge the gaps, and occasionally spend 6 hours making a joint that will spend most of its life facing a wall. Welcome to SAAW, unnecessarily stupid arguments about woodworking. A completely unnecessary series where once a month I develop a very strong opinion about something that probably doesn't even matter. Today, dovetails. Now, before somebody starts typing, I like dovetails, they're strong, they're beautiful, and making a really good one requires considerably more skill than I normally like demonstrating on camera. My argument isn't that dovetails are bad. My argument is that most people don't care. And I think woodworkers occasionally spend an enormous amount of time improving the things other woodworkers notice, while ignoring the things everybody notices. So, in the interest of extremely poor scientific standards, I'm making a box. And no dovetails, no heroic hand-cut joinery, and ideally no angry comments until at least halfway through the video. The box itself is pretty simple. A dark walnut body, 4 light corner pieces, a slight raised lid, and a small handle which looks considerably more complicated than it actually is. Because if I'm going to spend an entire video arguing that difficult joinery isn't what makes furniture look good, it would probably help if the box looked good. The main body is walnut. The lighter wood is also walnut, but it's sapwood. The part I normally cut off and throw into a pile. Apparently, even the tree understood contrast better than I do. Now, here's my problem with joinery. It's measurable. A dovetail fits or it doesn't. A miter has a gap. A tenon has a shoulder. You can look very closely at these things and confidently tell somebody they failed. Design is much more annoying. There isn't really a measurement for that box looks weird. Trust me, I've looked. The sides of this box are 8 millimeters thick. The lid is 10. That's a difference of just 2 millimeters. Structurally, almost completely irrelevant. But visually, I spent an embarrassing amount of time deciding on those 2 millimeters. Because I could make every joint perfect, every corner square, send everything to 220 grit, and the box can still just look wrong. And that's deeply annoying because perfect joints are much easier to measure than taste. The corners are not getting dovetails, they're getting glue. That's it. Glue. No loose tenons, no biscuits, no tiny pieces of wood specifically designed to make me feel better about alignment. Just glue. Which feels slightly irresponsible when you own this many woodworking tools. But it's a tiny box. The panels are 8 millimeters thick, and once it's assembled, I'm adding 4 corner posts over the joints anyway. So I could spend 4 hours cutting dovetails, or I could glue the bastard together. That's it. I chose glue. Which means somewhere right now, a man with a marking knife has felt a sudden disturbance in the force. And here's the annoying part. Once this box is finished, almost nobody will know how these corners are joined. They'll see the walnut, they'll see the proportions, the light corner posts, the lid, the handle. They'll probably touch the finish. Nobody's going to pick it up and award me an additional craftsmanship point based on the internal structure of the corner. Woodworkers might, but woodworkers are weird. Imagine I spend 4 hours cutting perfect dovetails, and another woodworker might notice, maybe. But if I make this lid slightly too thick, everybody will notice, which is deeply unfair because the dovetails were much harder. And I think that's where occasionally we get confused. Difficulty feels valuable to the person doing the work. We know what something cost us. We know how many times we sharpened the chisel. We remember the cut that almost ruined everything. The corner we had to remake, the piece we quietly threw across the workshop. The person looking at the finished piece knows none of that. They only see the result. And furniture is slightly cruel like that. Effort is invisible, but proportions aren't. These 4 corner posts are probably a better example of what I mean. They're walnut sapwood. Again, the bit of walnut I normally remove because apparently I've spent years throwing away free contrast. Structurally, the posts do reinforce the glued corners, which is convenient, but it's not why I added them. I added them because the box looked boring. The dark walnut body was just a dark walnut rectangle. These break up the corners. They make the box look a little taller. They give the sides a beginning and an end. And suddenly, the box has some kind of an identity. I haven't made the joinery more impressive. I've changed what you actually see. Conveniently, I've also reinforced the corners, which is my favorite kind of engineering. The kind I accidentally get while trying to make something look better. The lid is probably the stupidest part of this entire argument, because I could have made a flat panel. It would have worked perfectly. It would have covered the box. I would have successfully kept the inside of the box separated from the ceiling. Structurally, excellent, but it looked boring. So I made the lid 10 millimeters thick instead of 8. I lifted it slightly and added these 2 rails. The rails don't need to be there, which is how I know I've finally started designing furniture. And no, adding random decorative pieces is not automatically good design. Otherwise, every piece of furniture attacked with a decorative router bit in 2004 would now be priceless. But those 2 rails give the lid some depth. They change the silhouette a bit. They give your eye somewhere to go. Not a stronger joint, no additional engineering, just 2 pieces of wood sitting on top of another piece of wood. Apparently, this is design. And then there's the handle. This will probably take longer to make than several of the box joints. It contributes absolutely nothing to structural integrity. It doesn't reinforce a corner, it doesn't control wood movement, and it isn't traditional joinery. Basically, a complete waste of time. But I guarantee this is the part most people will touch. Probably their part they'll look at, and possibly the part they'll remember. Nobody has ever opened a box and said, wonderful handle. Shame about the half-blind dovetails. At least nobody worth inviting back. Now, obviously, none of this means craftsmanship doesn't matter. Bad joints still fail. Gaps still look terrible. And if this box falls apart while I'm explaining that joinery is overrated, the comments become very difficult to moderate. Craftsmanship matters. I just don't think difficulty and quality are the same thing. Something can be incredibly difficult to make and still be ugly. I have video evidence. The problem starts when we assume the hardest part of a build must also be the most important one. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's 2 millimeters on a lid, which is considerably less satisfying because nobody sells a 1,200 euro machine for fixing proportions. Believe me, I'd own it. I think that's really the whole argument here. When you're building something, you see the process. You see the effort. You know exactly which part was difficult. But everybody else only gets the finished object. They don't know which joint took 4 hours. They don't know which piece you remade. They don't know how clever your jig was. They just look at the thing and either like it or they don't. Which means we might occasionally be designing furniture for other woodworkers without realizing it. And yes, this is walnut, which means applying finish is basically cheating. We'll argue about that another month. So, nobody cares about your dovetails. That's obviously not true. Woodworkers care. I care. When they're done well, they're genuinely beautiful. But I don't think difficult automatically means better. And I definitely don't think that the details that impress another woodworker are always the details that make a piece of furniture feel right. This box has no dovetails. Nobody died. It still holds things. And annoyingly, I quite like it. This has been SAAW. Unnecessarily stupid arguments about woodworking. I'll find something else to be unnecessarily angry about next month. See you then.